All right, so it looks like, we have a lot of people interested in milling today. I got some people interested in turning, which we do have available with Fusion 360, as well as 3+2 functionality, which is also available today. And we will be having fifth axis, 5-axis capabilities coming out next month, actually this month, because today's September 1st. So this month, I believe our release is September 19th. We will actually be coming out with the functionality of doing swarf cutting. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Fusion 360, the roadmap, what's coming out in the future releases, definitely look at our community page on our website under roadmap, and you will see exactly what's coming out verbatim. Features, functionality, and everything in each release for the next couple of months. So please take a look at that. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to hide the results and let's get started here. So once again, my name is Curt Chan. I'm one of the Fusion 360 evangelists working for Autodesk. And on the line, I have Matthew Nichols. He is a solutions engineer for Hagerman and Company based out of beautiful St. Louis, Missouri. Matthew, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. Well, welcome aboard. Well, thank you again. And today is going to be talking about CAM Made Easy. We are going to be taking that next step and moving beyond 2.5 axis and talking with Matt. I mean, he has a great relationship with Autodesk, a subject matter expert in CAM, and what best to hear it from, one of our top graded resellers out there that can not only offer you guys support for CAM purposes, but just to you guys get introduced on their services, as well as, just the breadth of knowledge that Matt and his team can bring and help you guys out with using a lot of our products out there. Before I hand it over to Matt, I just want to kind of high level walk through and just give you guys an idea of, if you have questions, please ask them. I will be manning all the questions, and I will address them to Matt if there's something that you guys want him to revisit or elaborate on. But I will address everything through the questions, and if I don't have a chance to answer all of them, then I will then from there forward get back to you guys as well. Also, don't hesitate to reach out. Give me a holler at my email address, and then anything specific you have for Matt, I'm sure he'll have that in his presentation as well, and I can always forward things his way too. So from here now, once again, we talked about questions. This is just a great resource page, and I'm sure if you are on your computer, go ahead and do a print screen of this or use your smartphone to take a picture of this, because I think this is just great information. One, it's the forums. So a lot of our support for the community comes from the forums. I highly recommend this. I'm not just trying to push you and shove you guys off to the forums to have people, answer your questions, but the purpose of this is because we take our forums very, very seriously, if you guys don't know. Not only myself, my team, our development team, you even see our CEO, Carl Bass, on there, to a lot of our directors for Fusion 360, answer questions on the forums. So this is not just our interns that are answering your questions on CAM. This is our development team. If there's an issue, this will get fixed. So please keep in mind is the forums is the best way for your support in regards to Fusion, in regards to CAM, and then you can always purchase additional services through Hagerman and Company for that next level of CAM support too. Online learning, there's plenty of learning resources on our website. We have Fusion 101 training. Our other website, we have our classrooms that we record going through different tips and tricks and so forth. And then our famous YouTube channel. We've realized that, with this next generation and how things work today, that everybody Googles everything. So why not have a wonderful YouTube channel that everybody can go to for tips and tricks? If you don't know about our YouTube channel, take a look at it. We also have one specifically for Autodesk CAM as well. If you weren't aware of that, we have one specifically for Autodesk CAM, so take a look at the Autodesk CAM YouTube page. And with that said, I am going to hand it over to Matt, let him dive right in. Matt, let me go ahead and make you the presenter, and you can go ahead and share your screen, and we will go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be able to present some of this information I'm going to show. So I wanted to kind of cover an agenda and kind of go through some of the stuff here at PowerPoint real quick, and then we'll move right in on to actually getting into the software and looking at these items real time. So first, I kind of wanted to cover the Softjaws stock add-in that I created for Fusion, and I'll get into this more in a second. And then customizing default settings through edit expressions, compare and edit, toolpath info directly in the Toolpath browser, and then a quoting postprocessor through Fusion. And then I'll look at some 3D toolpaths, just kind of like a deeper look into a few of them, and then turning. So with the Softjaws stock add-in that I made, basically what this is doing is creating two Softjaw bodies within your Fusion design, along with a stock solid that you can use as well. What it's also doing is assuming, which I'll show here in a minute as well, assuming that your sketches all derive from the XY plane vertically, and then we build off of that either through the YZ or XZ plane. And then future development that I'm kind of working towards, we'll be able to support like dovetail fixture selection. And then with the changing default settings, typically when you're creating the toolpaths, you have either text variables that you're editing or pull down or checkboxes. So there's a couple different ways that you can edit default values or selections. So we're going to look at that. And then another thing that I'm kind of liking lately is instead of running an actual simulation, waiting for it to go through the whole thing, I can simulate individual toolpaths through the icon that's down here, that's underneath your actual expanded toolpath. And then also through that, we can look at an estimated machining time that you can also change through that dialog. Quoting postprocessor. Here I've kind of taken a blank Excel worksheet and that I've created as a template for a quote, and I'm basically pulling information from my setups directly into this quote form that will generate a very generic form, but it still works nonetheless for smaller parts. If it's something that you may have a solid part already sent to you, may not take long to throw some toolpaths on it just to get an estimate. You can use this to kind of get a little more accurate of a estimation on how much it would cost to do a job. And like I said, we're going to look at some 3D toolpath tips, parallel toolpath, just machining steep areas, spiral and morph spirals, and then the radial toolpath. And then I wanted to touch on a little bit of the turning, just because I like the turning in Fusion, well, any of the Autodesk CAM products, but some of the stuff that you can use to kind of speed up some of the programming steps. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the software. So inside Fusion, I've got this little part, and this is where I'm going to show my Softjaws stock add-in. So it's right here on this create panel. If I go into it, first option I'm looking at is what plane I'm going to start the sketch for my Softjaws. So basically what I want to do is I want to look at the length of the part, and then I want to pick the mid plane that's basically perpendicular to the length. Okay, so my YZ plane here. And then the jaw lengths, I've pulled these from Curt Holding website. So the lengths, I'm going to use a 6-inch vise, 0.9 for width, 1.9 for height, and I'm just going to do 1/4-inch grooves. And I have the ability to either select a box or cylinder stock. For this one, obviously I'm going to go ahead and use a box stock. So my width, I'm going to make 4.125. Length is going to be 6.875. And then my height is going to be 1 inch. And then I can go ahead and click OK. And then I've got my Softjaws and then the stock. So if I go ahead and hide the third solid body, you can see it's cut the grooves in here. I can now go ahead and create individual setups for each soft jaw and be able to cut those contours out for this part. Okay. So the second thing I wanted to look at, turn this back off, was how we go about kind of changing default values or default settings to fit what we want to show up initially. So the first one I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put a couple toolpaths in here. 10mm bullnose, picking my geometry. I'm going to select the inside, stock contours off. Okay. And then while that's calculating, I'm going to go ahead and put a 2D adaptive in here. I'm going to use a flat end mill for this one. And so since my profile on this one, the whole profile doesn't extend all the way to the bottom, I'm going to select this outermost profile. Then I'm just going to go into the height tab and change my bottom selection, my bottom height selection to this face of the part. Okay. And so we'll go back in and kind of mess with some of the other information here in a minute. Okay. Go ahead and pick that. All right, let's try this one again. So I'm going to go ahead and use that flat end mill. Okay, full center. All right, so well,
I'm thinking it's just something. I'm thinking from the adaptive side is you're doing the 2D adaptive clearing, and you're trying to just rough out the center, right?
yeah, it worked just like 10 minutes ago.
I know how that goes. No, I think you're doing it correctly. Hopefully, we'll be able to simulate it. Let it just chug a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
Well, even if it doesn't, I can go ahead and show some of the stuff without the 3D adaptive. It comes back up. Oops. Give me a second.
Yeah, no problem. I got to get this picture from you right there. That machinist. If you guys don't know too, we have a couple of shirts made. So if you are very active on social media, Twitter, or anything along that way, one thing, if you actually go to our cam.autodesk.com website, and under our customers, we have an Instagram gallery that feeds directly to that website. So if you post on Instagram and you do a hashtag Autodesk Cam, that would automatically be sent to our Autodesk website. So that's great marketing just for your own self. Like if you're doing designs in Fusion 360 and machining with Cam, go to the cam.autodesk.com website, go to customers, you see the Instagram gallery. If you're on Instagram and you hashtag, it's an automatic filter that will automatically post to our website. So keep that in mind. I think that's just great marketing for yourself. Helps us out, let people, you as the user evangelizing what Fusion 360 is about. I think that's real key. Just don't get too dirty with that stuff you guys post, because a lot of people see it. So just, keep in mind, let's keep it PG rated. But I think it's just a great way to really market and showcase what you guys do. So just wanted to point that out as Matt's getting some other things together. Feel free to, you know, I see one question which is awesome. You know, I noticed too is that one question that came in, Matt. We could just verify if you had the rest machining selected when you did the 3D operation. Maybe you did, and it was looking at that. If not, we could have just killed it, but no big deal.
Yeah, I think something might have been jacked up in my actual setup too.
Yeah.
Go ahead and throw this on real quick.
And then you're doing from previous operation. Okay, cool.
Yep. Okay, it's gonna go this time. All right. I don't know. I think it was something in my actual setup.
Yeah, no big deal.
All right. So now back to this one.
And one thing I love too, as Matt's going through and selecting all this, is you don't. One thing I love, there's so many ways to do this. Is you don't have to select bottom faces, and Matt showed you one way of doing it. But one thing I love to do is grab the planes and that arrow, and you can move those planes based off of the arrow if you don't know. But it's just another quick way if you're just trying to machine down to a certain depth, you can drag those down and snap them in too. But look, this looks great.
Yep. Okay, so now that I got it all working right. Okay, so in the opacity tab on the adaptive, what you see here is the maximum roughing step down. Okay. Now, if you've ever seen, or if you haven't gone to that expression, this value is actually driven by a math minimum expression. So basically, this one, what it's doing is taking the tool flute length and comparing that length overall to the 10 millimeters, and whichever one is lesser, it'll actually put that value in there. So if you're to do the conversion, the 0.39 would then actually be your 10 millimeter value. But what I want to do in this case, or in any adaptive clearing operation after this for 3D, I want to actually put an if statement in this expression. Okay, and it's all going to be derived off my tool flute length. Okay, so what I'm going to do is my tool flute length greater than 2 times tool diameter. Okay, so that's my if statement. If tool flute length is greater than 2 times tool diameter, then return tool flute length minus 10,000. Else, return tool diameter times 2. Okay, so that's my if statement. So if the tool flute length is greater than 2 times tool diameter, then it should return tool flute length minus 10,000. So now you can see I've got 0.97, and if I go into my tool, my flute length is 25 millimeters, so it's 25.4 is 1 inch, obviously. So so then I've got the correct statement that I want. So I can go ahead and calculate this one. Now, with some of the other ones, like a 2D adaptive, to get that multiple depths cut turned on, I have to actually check this box to activate multiple depths, and then I now get a maximum roughing step down value. Okay, so say this was one that I wanted to make standard for all adaptive clearing step downs. So I highlight both operations, and then I deal with the compare and edit window. So this is one of my favorite things. I actually go in here a lot to change stuff just because I'm fickle with my actual settings. So in here I basically can see all the parameters go into my tool paths, and I can also filter for them down here in this box. So if I want to filter for multiple depths, I can just start typing it in. And so I can see that 2D adaptive is no. So I'm going to go ahead and activate this and say yes. But now I also want to right click and say make all default. So now anytime I start a 2D adaptive operation, it's going to automatically default with multiple depths on. Now, also, since I did that, my maximum roughing step down is active for my 2D adaptive clearing as well. And I want to use the same expression for the 2D adaptive. Now, I could copy and paste it in here, say all default. I'm going to go ahead and copy it into my edit all. And then I want to say make all default to that. So now that expression, that if-then expression, will now filter into both a 2D adaptive and a 3D adaptive operation automatically. Okay. Okay, now another one is in drilling operations. So let's say I want to come in here and drill these holes out. I'm going to do an 1/8 inch drill. Now, I have select same diameter and auto merge holes, and I'm going to activate both of those. But what if I wanted those to come up automatically as well? Again, I can do the same setup, prepare and edit, and I can just start typing in select, say make all default, auto, make all default, and now anytime I start a drilling operation, those are automatically going to be checked. Okay. Now, the next one I wanted to look at was the actual visualization of the toolpath. So if I click on this, you see all the cutting lines, rapid moves, lead in, lead out, thinking, all that. And I don't know if you've ever looked at this or not, expanded it, but if you right click on this little byte icon with the file size on it, it's a typical right click window that you would get, but you also get view toolpath and you get machining time. So view toolpath actually gives you the breakdown of all the X, Y, Z positions. You get your feed rate, speed, and your RPM. Now, the one other thing you can do in here is, as I pick on it, I can actually hold down my arrow key, and as you see in the background, the tool is actually simulating across that toolpath. So, it's not the simulation like what you would do if you're actually simulating stock removal and all that stuff that you can do in Fusion, but it's kind of a quick way you can see some of the stuff that's going on through that toolpath. And then again, if I right click and do machine time, here I get just basically an estimate of overall machine time right here with the breakdown of tool change time, rapid time, and actual feed time. And then if you notice up here, you have 3 actual input boxes. So here I've got a feed scale of 110, rapid feed of inches per minute of 600, and this is saying that my tool has a 15-second tool change time. Now, what you can also do in here is I can actually edit these values. So, let's say maybe my machine was only capable of a 500 inch per minute rapid feed, and then let's say my tool change time is actually 25. So now down here you can actually see it adjust for the different changes. I'm going to go ahead and do this one again. So if you watch rapid feed, total rapid time, I'm going to change to 600, and now it's down to 15 seconds. And I'm going to change my feed scale percentage to 100. Okay, so this is basically just an estimate time of what this individual toolpath would take.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Matt, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is just a great thing you pointed out here. One thing I hear about a lot too with customers is, how accurate is that machining time? And people forget that you can go in there and change that, right? I mean, you look at like a Haas UMC 750, I think it's like 8,100 RPMs or something like that. So yeah, you can change all that based off your machine parameters. and really get very accurate times to what you're going to machine. Typically, what I've seen too is that, that's kind of like the longest time. People find it's actually a little bit faster too, but it's actually within a great percentage, a small percentage, I'm sorry, of what that number comes out to be. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that, that's some of the stuff I always point out to people, and it's like, oh, hey, that's, awesome that you can just do that straight into the Toolpath. So that's kind of some of the tips and tricks on just inside work on that. I wanted to move on to showing the actual quoting post-process. So one of the things I've done, and I don't know how many of you have used the setup sheet for Excel. I love it just because of the setup, and it's really organized. So this is a derived Excel workbook from that setup sheet, and this is what's going to be driving my actual quoting post-processor, pulling the information in. So all the values that you see in here with like the dollar signs, except these are actual hard numbers. These are parameters that's going to be pulled from our program and placed into here to actually populate these fields. And then one thing I'm doing here is, so I'm pulling part material, and I've got my overall stock size. So what I'm doing in this cost value is I'm actually giving it, it's a short if statement, but if you're doing it dependent on the number of materials that you actually machine from, this could get rather long. But for right now, all I've got is aluminum, stainless, and mild steel. But anyway, so what it's doing is once I actually populate this and put this part material in here, it's going to then take these values, multiply them together, and then multiply it by the density so that I can get my actual cost for that part. And so that's what this value is doing. So that's Excel, and then if I go in here, I've got this part already programmed, just 6 easy toolpaths. So what I'm going to do is select the setup, go to post-process. And so I've got this Fusion Quoting CPS file that's driving my values, or my actual posting to this Excel form. And then if anybody's ever seen or looked at these property fields inside this post-process dialog, if you ever create a new user-defined property, whether you have it alphabetized in the post-processor itself, it automatically alphabetizes them in here. So what I did was I put quote in front of each of the values that I would be filling out for a quote. And these are all basically drivers for the amount of time it would take, because I've got my actual dollar values assigned in the quote template. So here I can fill out, how many times it would take for CAD to actually model it and get it ready to program. I can program or put in my number of CAM hours to program. So let's say it'd be 5, and I'll do 2. Fixture setup, this is how many hours it's going to take me to set up the machine to be able to run it. Let's say it's 1.5 on that. Fixture quantity is going to be like how many Softjaws. So in this case, I don't have any because it's going to be put on a pallet. Part finish, if they want any kind of finish to the part after you machine it, then that's how the number of hours that would go into that. And then the overall quantities in which the customer's wanting. So, in this case, let's just say they're wanting 1. So I'll go ahead and post it out. And then this is what I would get. So you can see now that it populated the overall size of the stock, my material, the program number, the quote number, and then I've got my dollar values for the material, prep time, fixturing time. Since I didn't have any Softjaws, I don't have any value there. The overall machining time, so I've got 22 minutes into it. And then the finishing cost, my hours for programming and modeling. So, this part, according to this quote, would cost 172, minus shipping and handling, but that's just a figure. And I'll give a shout out to NYC CNC. I borrowed this mock-up of a quote from him just because I liked the layout. It was nice and clean, so I got approval from him to use it. So
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt, but
oh yeah,
it's, when we talked about this offline, it's, as any person that's getting into machining, and I've spent a lot of time. I actually met NYCNC a couple weeks ago, and I was working at the Tormach facility. But people that have a Tormach or get into machining, I mean, this is just a great quick way just to help you automate the process and just get a rough idea of what you'd want to charge a customer and give people a breakdown and help you just keep organized. So, if there's any questions on it, this webinar will be on our YouTube channel. You can revisit and to see exactly how Matt did it. But I think this is just great that you shared this. Thank you again.
yeah. And I mean, at Hagerman & Company, we do post development and all that stuff too. So if you were wanting something to do for quoting, we could help you out with that too. Be more than happy to look at it. All right. And then I want to look at covering some of the 3D toolpaths just in a little more detail. I'll turn off the sketch here real quick. So first, let's look at this contour. It's kind of a gnarly little contour. It may take like a couple, 2 or 3 toolpaths or whatever to get a really good finish on it. But what if we could minimize that a little bit more by defining a little more in depth of how a toolpath would encounter this? So what I'm going to look at first is a parallel toolpath. I'm not going to use a 3/4 inch ball end mill because that's rather large. I'm going to go down to a 1/4. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and select my geometry. And I'm going to kind of keep this contour going, center. All right, so I'm just going to hit OK and see what we get to begin with. All right, so our toolpath is basically the cutting path is going along the X. That's good. What if I wanted to change the angle? I want to get a closer step over, but I also want it to react differently to these steeper areas as it's going along. So let's go ahead and look at this. In the passes, I'm going to change my step over to, I'm going to say 30 thousandths, and then I'm going to give it a pass direction of 45 degrees. Now this is going to change the angle in which the toolpath is running. And then to get those steep areas, I'm going to activate machine steep areas. And then what I've done here is I've actually already linked my steep step down to my actual step over value, so it'll automatically pick that up. And then this value is derived from this actual step down value. So that's all good right there as I want it. So let's hit OK and see what we get now. Lots of blue lines. Okay, so if we come into this, and since we got a really tight step over, it's going to be really hard to see, but you can see that it's going to be acting completely different. I'm going to increase the step over a little bit. I'm just going to change it to 90. There we go. So you can see the concentration of the lines with that machine step over, or machine steep areas. It gets a really good finish on these steeper walls within this contour. Now, going from that, what if we come into one of these areas where we have kind of a sloped wall contour going into this little detailed cut? Typically you could probably do parallel paths around this. It may not turn out too hot. You'll have some pretty good scallops on it. So what if we defined it more with a radial cut? Okay, and you're probably wondering why that center point's just hanging out there in space. That's actually going to drive the center of our radial cut. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now, machining boundary, I want to go ahead and go to selection, and I'm going to select this contour and this contour. So now I'm defining the inside right here as the actual boundary that I'm wanting to machine. And then if I go to my passes, you'll see I've got angular step. So the degree, 1 degree is defining the angle in which it's stepping over. So the higher the angle, or the higher the degree, the greater the step over distance between passes. The lower the degree, the tighter the step over. And then I can also control it angular. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. And so you'll see that it goes all the way around the contour, and it doesn't go outside the boundary except for my linking. Now, if I edit it, and let's say I only wanted it over here. Let's just do 0 to 180. So here I can control it, how much of the contour I want it to be angular. You know, if I wanted to go 360 degrees around, I can go 180 to 360. You know, however you want to do it, you can control it through that from to angle. And then with the finishing of the inside of this, I'm going to go ahead and look at doing spiral, and we're going to look at more spiral as well. So on spiral, here again, I have to define a center point. I'm going to define a selection, so I'm going to select that boundary. And I'm just going to hit OK. And so with spiral, one of the things that I've always mentioned or noted was that as it's spiraling out, once any point of that tool center actually hits the boundary edge, it stops. So you'll notice it won't actually get a complete finished pass around to finish that contour. And then you can also do, there's two other different modes in spiral mode, spiral with circles, or I can just do all concentric circles. Now, with the concentric circles, it will actually do the whole loop around the outside. The only problem with this one that I see is you have all these different linking moves between the different concentric circles that might not look too good. So what I typically would do on this one is I would do a more spiral. Now with the more spiral, I don't have to select the center point. The only thing I have to do is actually tell the boundary in which I'm wanting the tool to stay in. Then obviously, I'm doing a larger step over, but that way you can kind of see how it's going. But it spirals the same, except what you'll notice is that it actually does a complete loop around the edge of the boundary rather than stopping before it actually finished that. So that's just kind of one way that you can look at doing these different detailed moves and contours. If you're wanting to do a complete finish around, more spiral is awesome. Otherwise, spiral will work too as well. Okay, so that's some of the milling aspect, 3D milling that I was wanting to look at. Now, close a couple of these. I'm going to go ahead and open up. I want to show a few things on turning just because I really like turning in here, and some of the stuff that I'm going to show could help, shorten programming time. So I've got 3 different solid bodies in here. The first one is obviously my finished part. The second one is basically what I would have as raw stock that I would water jet out this to. That will be my stock for my main part. So you can see here, that's basically what I did. I created a water jet toolpath and a setup to create that stock solid. And then I defined that in here so you can see my stock with my part. So in the setup, I'm going to go ahead and throw in a couple turning operations. So I'm going to do a facing operation first. Go ahead and select my tool. Okay. So awesome thing about doing the facing operation. It's the only one right now, but it gives you kind of a preview before you actually create the toolpath. So one step over is going to be good enough for this one. I've only got 40,000 sticking out in the front anyways. Okay, so I've got the face. Now I want to do a profile cut here, and keep in mind I've got this end of the part in the chuck. So really I'm only wanting to machine to this face as I'm doing this first setup. So I'm going to do turning profile, same tool. This time I'm going to set up confinements. That way I know that my tool isn't going to go past, at least not too far past this line. Rest machining. Now, going to what Curt was talking about earlier about pulling planes around, you can do the same thing on here. Always fun, quick and easy. Now, with these also, you got to look at these turning profile toolpaths as a roughing and finish pass all in one. Now you can turn them off and on as you want. If you want to do just a roughing and then come back and do a separate toolpath that's finished, you can do that. But they are one and the same at the beginning. Okay, so I'll do that. I'm going to come back with a grooving toolpath. Here again, I'm going to set up confinement, and I'm going to confine from this edge to this edge. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and give a negative offset on the back. Rest machining. Then I'm going to do, instead of full step down, I'm going to do a sideways with partial. So 40 thousandths on it. Okay, now you might be wondering, since I did this front confinement on this edge, why didn't I do it on this edge? Well, what if you had somebody come up and say, oh, hey, customer so-and-so said, instead of 2 grooves, I want 3 on that. And you have to lengthen the part. So let's come in here. I'm going to lengthen my part to 3 and 7/8, and I'm going to throw a 3rd groove in there. Ah, man, my cam going to be jacked up? Nope. Come in here, regen. All my toolpaths are good. So if I didn't put that confinement on this edge, I wouldn't have already picked up that 3rd groove. I would have had to gone back and redone it, my confinement selection. Okay, so turning, the last one I'm going to do real quick on this setup. I'm going to go ahead and come in, pick a boring tool. Change my tool orientation to 90. Inside profiling. Confine to this face and this face. Machining. Go. Cool. Okay, so we got that. So as you can see, it's kind of, as I'm removing the material, it's following along. So you can see that I've basically covered all the front of this. Now, I would go in and flip the part around so that I can then finish turning the rest of the part. So I can go through and I can create another setup. I can go in and make all the toolpaths again. But, if I look at it, I'm pretty much using the same toolpaths. So real quick, I'm going to do a right click on my setup, copy, and right click on my operations and paste. So now I've created a duplicate setup within this part. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going to flip my z-axis, and now this is the front. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do continue machining from previous setup. Okay? Now, if I click on this face operation, you can see it's already trying to regenerate on the opposite side. So if I go ahead and generate the toolpath, now it's on the back. And all I literally have to do on the rest of these is I'm just going to go in and modify my actual containment of them. So all the settings, everything's the same as it was before. It's just in a copied setup. And easy to modify. So now, with that one, I would have a finished part. that's basically what I wanted to show today. Um, so I guess now would be a good time if you had any questions.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. Thank you so much, Matt. I think that was great. Just from a lathe perspective, we'll talk offline. I think that part you showed, if you're not familiar with Cam for Fusion, introduced lathe in our last release. Feel free to contact Matt as well. But if you haven't tried it out yet, give it a shot. It'll be great to now see the capabilities that we do offer and what we call the full solution. Um, with that said, feel free to type in any questions. I know I was fielding some questions as they were coming in, but I'm glad to see everybody was still on who joined, which is fantastic. Got a great group today. What I do want to show really quick, just to kind of reiterate, so I'm just gonna switch screens over, Matt, really quickly. Is
Okay.
I mentioned this a little bit earlier. And was there anything else, Matt, you wanted to talk about before I switch over?
Nope, that was
Cool.
all I had for today.
Awesome, thank you. Let me go and just switch my screen over, and you guys can. And I just want to capture this. I mean, what I said earlier too is, we are all about social media and evangelizing all the great things that you guys do. We want you guys to evangelize a lot about that too. But as you can see on my screen here, if you go to cam.autodesk.com and you drop down under customer, you can hear and about all the customers that have been very successful with Fusion 360 as well as Autodesk CAM products, and then the Instagram gallery. I think this is great because if you do a hashtag or anything along that way, you will see it pop up, and all the feeds as people do the hashtag Autodesk CAM will pop up through this channel, and it's great just to see our community and you guys giving us the shout outs and showing that you use an Autodesk CAM product. So keep that in mind. This is always great. I think this is great for the community as well as what you guys do too. So share that knowledge. Now the question that did come up though was Matt. Someone was asking about how do you get that spreadsheet for quoting. And I don't know if you wanted to, if you didn't get Matt's email address, definitely give me a ping. And Matt, I believe, is that possible to share it with everybody? Matt, you still there?
Sorry, yeah. It's just a very basic post in Excel, and basically you just put both files in with where your posts are, and you'll be good to go.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I guess any example will be awesome. We can share with the team. And I guess, another question just came up too. Robert, you're asking about how can you become a customer, use 360 exclusively? You can definitely purchase through one of our resellers, Fusion 360. We can get you a link over there, as well as even our own website. You can purchase Fusion 360 too. I know Hagerman offers different packages of support too you might be interested in. But I believe easiest way is Fusion 360 to Autodesk.com to go ahead and purchase. Oh, I believe you were talking about the drop-down menu. So I'm trying to understand. I mean, Robert, feel free to email me offline, or we can always talk. If you want to talk, type in another quick question about it. When you talk about the drop-down menu for the Softjaws, I think there was a drop-down menu there, or are you looking for the drop-down menu for what specifically? Go ahead and feel free to type that one in there. But either or, feel free to reach out to us offline too. Any other questions that are coming in? Feel free to type through. We're just firing through them right now. With that said, thank you again, Matt. I greatly appreciate your time. Once again, I think this was a great series. I loved the part on lathe. I mean, I'm actually going to be cutting a video on lathe, and we'll talk with you offline just about that example part you used. If you guys didn't notice, you used some parameters in there. If you're not familiar with that, it's just a great way to parametrically drive your model and make quick changes. So we'll talk about that too in a video I'll create. But with that said, thank you again, everybody. We are with about 2 minutes left. Another question popping in is, let's see here. So, one question came up is about how do you become one of our fantastic customers here that are listed. Reach out to the Autodesk CAM team, reach out to myself, reach out to if you have any of our email aliases, and we'd love to talk with you, love to see what you're doing, but we are all about sharing what our customers are doing and how they're using our products. So don't be afraid if you got something cool and you want to get your name out there, we have no problem sharing, and evangelizing some of the products you guys are using too. On that note, I'm going to bring this guy back up here. I wanted to show was Fusion 360, our community page. When you go to our community page, the main page here, at the very bottom, as I talked about earlier, you have the view roadmaps. And on the roadmaps, now what you will see is exactly where our product is going, what's coming out. And I think this is just great, as you can see with September for a lot of the improvements that we're going to be adding. It's all listed just right off the bat right here. So something to kind of keep in mind. Big things too with five-axis capabilities coming out, the full-blown coming out with Fusion Ultimate in January. So just some great resources here for you guys too. All right, so with that said, looks like all the questions came in. We are now at 2 o'clock. Once again, thank you again, Matt. Look for this recording on our YouTube channel in the days to come. And thank you again, and thanks again, everybody.